Oh, there it is.
I knew that.
You did? Alright. Let's see if I can share this link. I went live. Saru, don't be loud. How do I send the link? I need to be able to send the link.
That's whack. Well, that's whack. That's what you're gonna do. This part of my head. This part of my head hurts.
Do you know why?
Why?
Because you hit it on the chair when you were playing downstairs. Alright, if I can find the link to share this video.
I know what it is.
I don't see it. Oh wait, maybe if I do this. Share.
I knew it was there.
Twitter.
I knew it was shared. That's what I... Jupiter.
Okay.
Ew.
Don't do that.
What did you say?
Alright, let's see if anybody's watching. It says one person. Alright, so we're live from the bed on this Monday evening, ready to talk about some astrology. And I am trying to see if you guys are tuning in. And let's see, I don't see anyone tuning in. It says that there is one person watching. Oh, look. It's Deb. Hi, Deb. Okay. Well, Deb's the only one watching. Thanks for watching, Deb. You are a true friend. I don't know where the rest of these people are. Maybe YouTube's just not telling the truth. Oh, there we go. People are coming in. Okay.
Let me see.
Well, three. See, three people. So it's me and the boy here, ready to talk about Jupiter and Libra. I feel like I've been talking about Jupiter and Libra and Venus conjunct Jupiter and Libra for like a month. I feel like I've been talking about it forever. And I can't even say it's anticlimactic because it feels more
Cool.
like, yeah, so I need you to stop. Thanks. It feels more like it's just been building up for so long. And yeah, so one of the largest themes that I think we're still not really even seeing the full extent of with regard to Jupiter and Libra is this theme of justice. And the logic behind that is that Libra is an air sign. So when we're talking about Venus being at home in an air sign, we're talking about Venus things, which are bringing people or objects or ideas together. And with an air sign, this is, don't pull that out because then our video will disappear.
that, that would
Um,
be whack.
yes, it would. It This is talking about on a social level, and
When
socially, um, Libra is about how do we cooperate, and cooperation has to do with the individual wills of multiple people being able to figure out whose will are we going to follow, who is the person, or what is the pathway that we're going to take, and who gets to decide that. And with Libra, it's asking that we do this cooperatively, that we come together and we be willing to give up some of our own personal ambitions in order to um, gain the cooperation of other people. But the other side of that, though, is that, and this is where Venus and Libra comes in, that Libra and Aries have the same goal, right? These are opposing signs that are complementary. They're air and they're fire. So the goal that these two signs have is that they both want to get what they want. They both want to further their own agenda. But Aries does it by doing it alone. They don't want any help. If you're in their way, move. If you are trying to take something that they believe is theirs, you will start a fight over it. But Libra, on the other hand, is different. And this is where Libra gets the reputation sometimes of being manipulative, because Libra knows how to leverage relationships in order to further their own ambition. So what I want to hit home with that, though, is this idea that Libra is somehow um, noble or altruistic. Air signs are not altruistic. Air signs actually mean that they are able to arrest their emotional response to taking certain actions or moving in a certain direction, which, you know, that is a good or a bad thing. Um, but with that being said, today, early this morning, Venus and Jupiter began a new cycle. And every planet has some type of a relationship with every other planet. And what I mean by that is that every planet is moving in a cyclical fashion in relationship to another planet. So, as far as Venus and Jupiter are concerned, they conjunct once every year. Jupiter changes signs once every year. So that means that Venus and Jupiter conjunct in a new sign, which is a successive sign each year. What's also implied in that is that the conjunction between Venus and Jupiter today only happens once every 12 years. There's 12 signs, and Jupiter transits each sign for 1 year. And so every 12 years, Jupiter comes back to Libra, and every 12 years, Venus has an opportunity to meet up with Jupiter. Now it's special now because Venus is the ruler of Libra, or Venus is at home in Libra. And all that means is that Venus can do Venus things without any resistance or difficulty in Libra. If Venus wants to bring people together, if Venus wants to help people to bond, if Venus wants people to connect, if Venus wants people to create communities and develop communal identities, then Venus can do that really easily in Libra, right? This is where Venus is at home. So today, this new cycle is ending one cycle that began last year. And the cycle last year was a conjunction between Venus and Jupiter in Virgo. And that was really fascinating because both Venus and Jupiter are debilitated in Virgo, meaning that Venus can't do Venus things very well and Jupiter can't do Jupiter things very well when they're in Virgo, because Virgo is this really calculative sign and love is not an equation. Virgo is very much concerned with the logical steps that it takes to get to a certain outcome, and everyone knows that relationships don't work that way. right? You can do all of the quote right things and take all of the quote right steps and still end up not fulfilled and not having what you wanted. And so, excuse me, that was the difficulty with Venus and Jupiter in Virgo. But now Venus and Jupiter are in Libra. So right now, Venus is the boss, okay? Venus is ruling Jupiter, and Jupiter has to answer to Venus. And so what this means is that before Jupiter can do before Jupiter can do Jupiter things, Jupiter must consider Venus things. And what that means is that Jupiter must consider other people. It must consider relationships. It must consider the desires and interest of other people. It must consider the group. It must consider the community. All of these things that I'm seeing some of your messages now. Um, hey, Natalia. Hey, Lily. Uh, Jupiter has to think about Venus things before it can do Jupiter things. So Jupiter being our personal convictions, our beliefs about what is possible, our personal myth and the story that we tell ourselves about our lives, the story that we tell each other. And collectively, Jupiter really represents our collective narrative, right? So I always say that when we were in the cycle of Venus, of Jupiter in Virgo, our story centered around numbers. I mean, literally the entire time that Jupiter was in Virgo, um, we talked about polls. We talked about the Electoral College. And dear leader 45, who has natal Jupiter in Virgo, was obsessed with the number of votes he won the electoral. Come on, you're knocking the computer down. Um, the number of votes that he won the electoral college by. This is being a entrepreneur with a child, being a single mother. Y'all see this? He's all up in my video and he's trying to get on my laptop. I told him when I finished he could play, but he don't know how to wait his turn. This is what 5-year-olds do. What is it that you're trying to say? They don't, right? Anyways, so that was Jupiter in Virgo, right? Jupiter answering to Mercury and worried about mercurial things, which is function over form, mechanics, the precise precision and mathematical types of logic. These are all things that our collective myths and story were around, and we really struggled to figure out how could the numbers be wrong. Welp, numbers can't tell the whole story. So now Jupiter in Libra is like, okay, let's try this story. Let's tell a story about who we belong with outside of our biological ties. Let's tell a story about our collective and communal identities. Let's tell stories about women. Let's tell stories about what's right and what's wrong. Let's tell stories about justice. Let's tell stories about how we build community and what are those things that keep us together. Let's tell a story about status. Let's tell a story about who is. Can you stop? This is not a mirror. People can see the inside of your mouth, you know. Let's tell a story about status and the loss of status and the gaining of status, right? These are all Libra things. So with Jupiter and Venus coming together, we have the combination. Now, anytime there's a conjunction, this is the simultaneous end and beginning of a new cycle. So we are ending the cycle that began last year when Venus and Jupiter were conjunct in Virgo. And now we're beginning a new cycle which will end next year when, actually, I don't know if it will end until 2019, actually, because Venus is going to be in Libra next year from like September 1st to January 1st, 2019. So we won't see the Venus Jupiter conjunction in Scorpio until January of 2019. So, yes, so this is a long cycle. And this cycle that's beginning is combining these two significations. So we've got Venus, which is relating and relationship, and we've got Jupiter and our personal convictions. So we can combine these two planets and their significations to get a variety of stories and meanings and themes that will dominate over the last year. And we've already really seen them. I mean, we have truly been uncovering the power dynamic between relationships, regarding relationships between men and women, right? This idea that men can coerce women, or women uh, uh, are the have the lesser status in relationships. But this is really turning it on its head, because women have been coming forward demanding justice. Right? They've been coming forward demanding that people are held accountable. These are all Libra words: justice, being held accountable, following the rules. Right? You don't deserve the notoriety, the popularity, the positive fame that you have, or the influence. This is another Libra word. You don't deserve those things if you cannot be right, if you cannot be moral, if you can't follow the rules. And this thing is spread like wildfire. It's like the new moon in Libra occurred and it set off this whole thing. And I think we're going to see more of this. And one thing that I want to add that I mentioned briefly on Twitter today is back in June, I read Donald Trump's lunar solar return chart. And in that solar return chart, I saw this Venus and Aries in the seventh house. And I was like, man, women are going to be causing him some really big problems over the next year. And it may just be a woman who brings him down. Of all of the things that he's done that are illegal, immoral, and unethical, it may just be women or a woman who takes the wind out of his sails, punctures his boat. Um, so I bring that up because Jupiter in Libra is now opposing um, that Venus in his chart. And I think that's important to the narrative of number one. Last year, he was the first person to be exposed as a sexual predator. And so, under his presidency, this whole entire theme has kind of magnified. As you said, hi, he wants to see you're talking to. Yes, Cancer Moon Kid hang out. Yes, you guys are so sweet. Um, this story has magnified so much now that it's kind of taken over everything. So let's talk about what this Venus and Jupiter conjunction means for us individually. So Venus is always prominent women, and when Venus is in her own sign, that means that women dominate. Women dominate the narrative, right? Narrative is Jupiter. It means that women have power, women have influence, and women are in control. So for all of us, wherever this Venus and Jupiter conjunction is occurring, we have the opportunity for significant women to hold some influence in our lives. So for Libra rising, you may be that significant woman, or you may be attracting. Can you not do that? Can you be attracting women to you? If you are Scorpio rising, Venus and Jupiter is in your 12th house. And that's a really interesting placement because that could be some kind of secret liaison or relationship happening. Um, but it can, the thing about the 12th house, and this goes for all signs, keep that middle finger to yourself. Um, this goes for all signs that when we have transits or planets in the 12th house, this is a secret private place. It's a hidden place. It's where we go to get away from what is familiar. And so for Scorpio and for all of us, the 12th house sign is extremely dissimilar to the sign that's rising in the ascendant. So for Scorpio, Libra and Scorpio are quite dissimilar. They are signs that are adjacent to each other are the least alike. And so, where Venus ruled Libra is really trying to leverage relationships in order to further their own agenda, Scorpio is trying to keep other people out in order to further its own agenda. Scorpio is not interested in relationships for the sake of um, cooperation or collaboration. Um, Scorpio is much more interested in emotional autonomy and being able to assess the risk of any particular endeavor to ensure victory and to go forward without the interference of other people. So for Scorpio rising, this Venus Jupiter conjunction is asking you to focus your attention on something that is foreign to you. Focus your attention on something that does not come naturally to you. So I'm hoping that that resonates because it seems kind of cryptic as I say it. So let's see, we've got Sagittarius rising, which is the lucky, lucky, lucky rising sign, sun sign, or moon sign that gets Venus and Jupiter. Can you stop kicking my laptop? And you're getting ready to pull this out. Um, and then I'm gonna have to start over. um, so Sagittarius rising is the lucky rising sign, and that gets Venus and Jupiter in the 11th house. Jupiter joys in the 11th house, which means that the significations and meanings of Jupiter function very naturally and freely in the 11th house. So Jupiter is about um, wealth and abundance, but it's also about community in the sense of integrity and this idea that we come together, stop with other people um, for a common cause. So I'm about to kick you out of here, boy. Um, so for Sagittarius rising, this is making beneficial connections that help you to further your own agenda. And this is with people who may have power and influence, access to resources or a particular resource that you need. It may not be a woman, but it may focus on women's issues in some way, or not, because that's not always the way that it manifests, but you get my drift. Capricorn rising, this Venus Jupiter conjunction is occurring in your 10th house, and this is really great. What kind of collaborations are you going to make on your job? What kind of positive attention are you getting regarding your reputation? What influential women have a role in the direction of your career and your ability to further your own reputation? For Aquarius rising, Venus and Jupiter are in your 9th house. And the 9th house is travel, religion, politics, higher education, and foreign language. It's our politics and our ethics. So, yes. So the 9th house has to do with the ways in which we learn things of our own volition. The 3rd house is compulsory schooling, which is the opposite of the 9th house. So the 9th house has to do with the things that we study and learn. It also has to do with institutionalized religion. So all of those themes can be really important. Again, maybe there is a teacher or a foreign woman, or maybe there is a woman politician who has some influence or that you have access to or has an interest in these ninth house themes. Let's see, where are we? We're Aquarius rising. So we're Pisces rising, right? And Libra is your 8th house. So the 8th house, this is funny because 8th house, the sign on the 8th house of your chart, and this is using whole signs. The sign on the 8th house cusp of your chart is the sign that is extremely dissimilar to the rising sign. So Pisces is this mutable water sign, and Libra is a cardinal air sign. So what we have here is this rationality and objectivity of Libra, countering or having no connection or relationship with the intuition and emotional porousness of Pisces. So the 8th house is a vulnerable place. Venus and Jupiter there gives you access to other people's money and resources. It also may mean that there are significant women who you have issue with, or significant women who you have access to their money or resources, or that may not make it, right? This is that kind of cycle. Jupiter is about, and I'm talking about transiting Jupiter, is about expanding beyond the limits of what we believe is possible. And sometimes those limits that we expand beyond are the physical body, which is um, why Jupiter can sometimes bring death. Let's see, what have we got here? Oh, Aries rising with Venus and Jupiter in the 7th house. This is really interesting because what I've come to understand about the seventh house is that while the seventh house is your spouse and partners, and it does have to do with romantic relationships and business partnerships, it's also the house of open enemies. And so when we have planets transiting the seventh house, this highlights our interactions with other people and what are the energies that are governing those interactions. So, for Aries rising, this could be an opportunity for you to expand beyond your relationship patterns and how you've connected with people, but it can also illuminate the fact that you have issues with women or you have issues in your relationships. And Jupiter is here to tell you that the story that you've been telling yourself about your relationships does not fit anymore. And by the way, that goes for all of these signs, all of these sidereal signs, that Jupiter is saying that the story that you've been telling in that particular house doesn't fit anymore. And that could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on the story that you've been telling yourself and how it's been able to keep up with the changes that you've made personally and in your life. So let's see, we're at Taurus rising, which is Venus and Jupiter in the sixth house. And this could be working on a project that you really, 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 really love, but it takes up all of your time and requires you to take on additional duties and job titles and roles. Taurus rising with Venus and Jupiter in the sixth house, too. Overindulgence can bring health issues. So just be careful with that, particularly with your digestion and kidneys. So make sure you're drinking enough water. Let's see, we are at Gemini rising, and Venus and Jupiter is in your fifth house of children, love, sex, pleasure, and creativity. Juba Jabba Jibba Juba. That is like a tongue twister for me today. Gemini and Sagittarius are the lucky signs because while Jupiter joys in the 11th house, Venus joys in the fifth house. So that means that on one hand, the significations for the fifth house actually come from Venus. So the fifth house is love, sex, pleasure, creativity, fun, entertainment, art, music, all of those things, theater. Um, so that means that the Venus being in its own sign in the fifth house is kind of like saying that Venus can do its thing. So, you might be trying to do the do the horizontal dance with a new lover. You may be ready to get out there and meet people. Perhaps art or music is taking on a new role for you, or perhaps you've reinvigorated a particular relationship with your children. Again, excuse me, this is a cycle that is beginning now. So, this isn't necessarily things that you'll see today. You will be seeing these things over the next few weeks as long as Venus is still in Libra. And as Venus moves through the rest of the zodiac, making relationships with Jupiter, meaning the square and the opposition in that final square that we'll get next year, this will be the story that is developing through those aspects. We have Cancer rising, which has Venus and Jupiter in the fourth house. So, you're trying to spend some good time with your family, reconnecting with loved ones, beautifying your home, and maybe moving in with a woman, maybe buying a piece of property, signing a new lease, um, or collaborations that involve real estate. And your mother may be playing some kind of significant role for you. We've got Leo rising with Venus and Jupiter in your third house with highlight siblings. If you don't have siblings, the third house can highlight people who are like family or like siblings, as well as cousins and neighbors. The third house is also anti establishment religion. So, this is pathways of spirituality that we explore on our own outside of what is institutionalized or doctrine and dogma. So, Leo rising can begin a course of study or discovery with regard to their spirituality outside of perhaps the religion that they were raised with. Uh, let's see, we're down to Virgo. That's this guy over here. Virgo rising puts Venus and Jupiter in your second house. And this is a new cycle with regard to your personal possessions and your earned income. So, what about this guy? He doesn't have any personal possessions or earned income. Well, that transit would come back on me because I'm the money making person and I'm the person that would facilitate um, uh, financial or economic things like that, possessions and money and all that stuff in his life. But it also may mean that he's going to have a particularly good Christmas this year. So we'll see. Um, one of the things that I want to highlight before I go is that this is a story that's just beginning. And so, as I mentioned before, don't expect everything to happen today or tomorrow. That's not how this works. First of all, Jupiter has been laying the groundwork for this conjunction in your Libra house since September 11th. So it's important for you to go back and think about what's been happening over the past couple of months with regard to the house and the significations that I mentioned for your rising sign as well as for your sun and moon sign. And I always say is if you were born after sunset but before sunrise, you can read for your ascendant and your moon sign. And if you were born after sunrise but before sunset, you can read for your sun sign and your ascendant and kind of get two different stories going there. So, where was I? I was talking about the longer cycle and this just really being a beginning of something that is going to be going on for a long time. So we want to look forward to the quarter marks of the Venus and Jupiter cycle. So the first quarter mark will be the square where Jupiter is still in Libra and Venus is going to be in Capricorn, and that occurs in February. Um, the next part of the cycle after that is going to be the opposition with Venus in Aries and Jupiter in Libra, and that is in April. Then we have Venus in Cancer and Jupiter in Libra, which is the final square, excuse me. And let's see, that should be, I don't even know where my phone is. With my my convenient sidereal calendar here that I keep in my phone, I believe that is going to be in June. Venus. Yes, June 25th to be exact. And then, like I said before, this cycle will not end until January ish. Actually, you know what? Let's see. Yeah, January of 2019. So, excuse me, this cycle is a little bit longer than normal because it's going for about. But you know what? I think it's always like that because I believe that the Venus Jupiter conjunction last year was in August. But don't hold me on that. It was in August or September. In any case, oh, I did have one other thing that I wanted to say. And Venus and Jupiter are both benefics, which means that their nature is to expand, bring things together, right? But it's very, very, very important to remember that that expansion is not necessarily um, beneficial. That expansion can be excessive, um, it can be provocative, and it can just be doing way too much. So, keeping that in mind, that the way that Venus and Jupiter transits function aren't always positive. For example, Jupiter in Gemini was transiting my seventh house, kicked my butt. Okay? Like, that was the wackest transit ever. Not gonna lie. Really whack. And part of that had to do with the fact that Jupiter was in Gemini, but seventh house transits in general are pretty difficult. And I know that goes contrary to what modern astrology says. But the seventh house, traditionally going way back, was actually the house of death because that is the angle or part of the sky where the sun is setting. So the sun is dying every day there. But now that's in the eighth house because the sun is still um, culminating towards that western angle. Um, but I say that all to say that As much as Venus and Jupiter conjunct in Libra can bring people together, it can also bring breakups. Remember, excuse me, Jupiter's function is to expand beyond the limits of what we believe is possible. It's to come and say, yeah, I know you believe that this is what's possible in your life, but actually, you probably are going to be doing this now. And that could mean that you've outgrown a particular relationship or that your partner has outgrown you and it's time for you guys to part ways. Um, so just keeping that in mind, and then keeping in mind Libra. And people have so many opinions about Libra, they vary. From stereotypes to saying that Libra is codependent or indecisive. And I don't know that Libra is indecisive. I think that the the way that Libra decides is different, um, meaning that Libra's decision is based more on how they can get what they want and if they can get it and who can help them, not necessarily if they actually want what they want, if that makes sense. Um, yeah, but Libra can be a really fierce sign, especially with what I was saying about air signs being able to detach from their emotions. Our emotions are what keep us grounded in our body. And so when you can detach from your emotions, you are not in your body and you do not feel viscerally the sensations and emotions that may cause most people to change their course or their behavior.
Mommy, it's getting too long.
Are you getting sleepy?
But I want to play the laptop.
Okay. I think that the sick child has cut off my video time. I will be on Twitter though, talking about this. Um, I put a tweet up earlier today. I'll retweet it that said that justice is a tool of human righteousness. It is not divine intervention. And that's what I want to leave this with. Um, for me, this is a big part of how we can collectively understand Jupiter and Libra, with this idea that justice is not something that comes as a divine or some kind of law that just is. Justice is a tool of human righteousness. It's a tool that humans use in order to keep their societies in order. That someone must he just turned off the lights. Someone must administer the law and make sure that people are doing the right thing. Someone must be doling out the consequences and keeping track of people's behavior. Justice is not divine intervention. So that means that if you believe that something is wrong, then you have to do something about it. No one is going to come and fix and make sure that everybody's doing the right thing. No one's coming to save us in that way. We have to be righteous and we have to be morally upright and we have to be willing to stand up for what we believe in. And with that said, I will bid you good night.
Bye.